Did you know that Dostoevsky predicted the mental collapse of Nietzsche in his novel Crime and Punishment, particularly during the haunting horse-beating scene? While Nietzsche proclaimed the death of God and called for a new beginning that stood in stark opposition to Christianity, Dostoevsky found God, but only when he faced his own death. As he stood before a firing squad ready for execution, his life took a dramatic turn. Nietzsche and Dostoevsky emerge as distinctly different thinkers. Nevertheless, their destinies intertwined through their biographies, shared themes, and methods of inquiry. Dostoevsky saw morality as having divine origins. A sincere believer in God and an Orthodox Christian, he hadn't always held these views. In fact, he had been a skeptic earlier in life. Everything changed for him in 1849, when he was almost executed for his involvement with the Petrushevsky Circle, a group of radical intellectuals. Just as he was preparing to face death by firing squad, the order was suddenly revoked. Dostoevsky vividly describes a similar scene in his novel The Idiot, where the main character, Prince Myshkin, shares a profound existential realization. In the face of death, every moment of life becomes infinitely precious. His reflection touches on the existential anxiety surrounding death and the sense of both absurdity and sacredness that arises when confronted with life's finite nature. The near-death experience deeply transformed Dostoevsky's outlook on life and faith. Nietzsche, on the other hand, chose a different path after experiencing another type of mystical transformation. His guiding figure was not Christ, but Dionysus, the Greek god of wine, chaos, and ecstatic experience. Dionysus first appears in Nietzsche's The Birth of Tragedy, published in 1872, and he would remain a central figure in his thought until the very end of his career. Remarkably, Nietzsche and Dostoevsky were the same age, both 28, when their metamorphosis took place. From this point onwards, Dostoevsky in his works would explore the depths and mysteries of Orthodox Christianity and the power of redemption, while Nietzsche would pursue the wisdom of life with the dancing god Dionysus as his mentor. In Nietzsche's The Birth of Tragedy, we encounter two contrasting forces, Dionysus and Apollo, representing two distinct existential paradigms. Dionysus, the god of wine, chaos, and ecstasy, embodies the primal, irrational forces of life, wild, untamed, and connected to the raw human experience of suffering and joy. He symbolizes the acceptance of life's inherent chaos and the embrace of suffering as part of a larger, more ecstatic existence. In contrast, Apollo, the god of light, order, and reason, represents the human desire for structure, clarity, and restraint. Apollo's paradigm is one of balance, measured beauty, and the pursuit of self-control in the face of life's disarray. While Nietzsche celebrates Dionysus for his affirmation of life's tragic nature, there is an interesting parallel to be drawn between Apollo and Christ. Like Apollo, Christ offers a vision of order and harmony. However, in Dostoevsky's view, reflecting a broader Christian tradition, the ethical framework embodied by Christ goes beyond mere restraint and rationality. For Dostoevsky, Christ's message is not about suppressing the chaos of life, but transforming it through love, forgiveness, and redemption. Where Apollo seeks beauty and clarity in the face of suffering, Christ offers a path to salvation that embraces suffering as a means of spiritual growth, providing hope through the promise of redemption. However, Nietzsche takes issue with the figure of Christ and the Christian worldview. While Christ offers salvation through suffering, Nietzsche argues that Christianity presents a path to what he sees as non-existence. In Nietzsche's view, Christianity's focus on the afterlife, on a world beyond, which he calls the hint of it, constitutes a denial of life as it is. Christianity for Nietzsche becomes an escape from reality, a rejection of earthly existence in favor of an imagined, otherworldly salvation. In this sense, Nietzsche critiques Christianity for refuting the full embrace of life's suffering and chaos, and instead turning to an aesthetic ideal of purity and restraint, much like Apollo. For Nietzsche, this is the ultimate denial of life, the refusal to accept the tragic, chaotic nature of existence in favor of fictitious, perfect realm that negates the vitality of life itself. Thus, Nietzsche contrasts Dionysus, who embraces the harsh, chaotic, and tragic realities of life, with both Apollo and Christ. Apollo offers order and beauty, and Christ offers spiritual redemption. But Nietzsche argues that both, in their own ways, turn away from life's raw, chaotic essence. For Nietzsche, only Dionysus, with his acceptance of suffering and joy in equal measure, represents the full affirmation of life, with all its contradictions, without seeking an escape or refuge in another world. If you're enjoying this exploration of Dostoevsky and Nietzsche, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to my channel for more insights into philosophy and literature. Your support helps me to create more content like this. In Crime and Punishment, Fyodor Dostoevsky delves deep into the human psyche, particularly through the character of Raskolnikov, who embodies struggle between the roles of master and slave. Am I a trembling creature, or do I have the right? A question Raskolnikov asks himself when reflecting on the possibility of killing Alona Ivanovna, a corrupt old pawnbroker. The tension resonates with Friedrich Nietzsche's ideas about morality, particularly his concepts of slave morality and master morality. Nietzsche posits that traditional morality, shaped largely by Christian ideals, arises from the resentful perspective of the oppressed, the slaves. In contrast, master morality values power, strength, and individualism, celebrating life in all its chaotic glory. Dostoevsky's exploration of Raskolnikov's inner turmoil reveals a modern-day underground man, a character reminiscent of those Nietzsche critiques. The underground man, as present in another Dostoevsky's work, Notes from Underground, is characterized by his profound resentment and bitterness. He lives in constant conflict with societal norms, exhibiting the traits of a slave mentality. He feels alienated and powerless, oscillating between a desire for superiority and the weight of his own guilt and shame. The internal struggle showcases how resentment can distort one's perception of freedom and agency, leading to a self-imposed bondage. Nietzsche would argue that this resentment is a defining attribute of the slave mindset, rooted in a desire to retaliate against those who possess power. For Nietzsche, the underground man's incessant grievances serve to highlight how slave morality breeds weakness and paralysis. The resentment harbored by figures like Raskolnikov and the underground man becomes an impediment to authentic existence, a life defined not by societal constraints, but by individual will and creativity. In this light, we can see a connection to the figure of Christ, who, while offering a message of love and redemption, is often viewed through a Nietzschean lens as embodying a certain type of resentment against the powerful. Nietzsche saw Christ's teachings, at least the way they're practiced, as a rejection of life's struggles, offering a moral framework that, in his view, leads to a denial of existence and a retreat into self-pity. In On the Genealogy of Morals, Nietzsche critiques these resentful ideologies, arguing that they serve to undermine the human spirit's potential for greatness. Interestingly, Nietzsche himself was influenced by Dostoevsky's work. He read Notes from Underground in a French edition and recognized the depth of Dostoevsky's insights. He was the only psychologist I had anything to learn from. That is what Nietzsche said about Dostoevsky. This acknowledgement underscores how Dostoevsky's exploration of the human condition resonates with Nietzsche's ideas, even as they diverge in conclusions about the value of suffering and the role of morality in shaping human identity. The slave and master morality is approached differently by Nietzsche and Dostoevsky, reflecting their broader philosophical frameworks, including their connections to the figure of Christ and Dionysus. Nietzsche advocates for the embrace of master morality, celebrating strength, creativity, and the affirmation of life. He aligns with the Dionysian spirit, which encourages strong individuals to reject societal constraints and the resentment of the slaves. For Nietzsche, true freedom emerges from the will to power, where one transcends limitations and embraces their own potential for greatness. Conversely, Dostoevsky's perspective, particularly through characters like Raskolnikov and the Underground Man, presents a more intricate relationship with suffering and morality, resonating with the Christ-like ideals of redemption and sacrifice. Dostoevsky frequently illustrates that even the most resentful and pitiable individuals can find salvation through the miracle of Christ. For example, in Crime and Punishment, Raskolnikov, who initially embodies pride and nihilism, grapples with profound guilt and alienation after committing murder. His journey through despair ultimately leads him to a moment of grace, where he begins to embrace the possibility of redemption through suffering and humility, particularly in his encounters with Sonia, a character whose faith and compassion serve as a guiding light. This example illustrates that Dostoevsky often reveals how the most broken individuals, burdened by resentment and despair, can find a path to a more profound existence through faith, love, and the acceptance of moral responsibility. Each perspective offers valuable insights, inviting us to reflect on the nature of power, morality, and the human condition. Nietzsche's celebration of the Dionysian ethos contrasts sharply with Dostoevsky's exploration of Christ-like redemption, challenging us to consider the depths of our own moral landscapes and the potential for transformation within them. As we draw this exploration to a close, we are left to ponder the haunting parallels between the dramatic stories of Nietzsche and Dostoevsky, particularly regarding suffering, compassion, and redemption. In Ecce Homo, his last published work before the onset of madness, Nietzsche provocatively concludes with the words "Hat man mich verstanden, Dionysus gegen den Gekreuzigten." Have you understood me? Dionysus versus Christ. This final line encapsulates a dark, Promethean revelation, suggesting that Nietzsche fully embraces the chaotic power of Dionysus as the only true force in existence. Yet this acceptance also drives him toward madness. It is commonly believed that Dionysus strikes men with frenzies, a notion that tragically materialized in Nietzsche's own life. On January 3rd, 1889, he witnessed a coach driver mercilessly beating a stubborn horse. Disturbed by the sight, Nietzsche threw his arms around the horse's neck and sobbed uncontrollably. This moment of profound compassion preceded a significant psychological collapse, leading to a period of intense silence and turmoil. After sitting for 2 days on a divan, he eventually muttered the words, "Mutter, ich bin dumm." Mother, I am stupid. This incident marks a critical point in his life, encapsulating the intense conflict between his embrace of the Dionysian ethos and the chaos that ensued from rejecting the redemptive qualities embodied by Christ. In a striking parallel, Dostoevsky's Crime and Punishment presents a similarly haunting exploration of suffering through the character of Raskolnikov. In one pivotal dream, Raskolnikov finds himself back in his childhood, witnessing a drunken peasant mercilessly beating an old horse to make it pull a heavy wagon. The crowd laughs, reveling in the violence, but the young Raskolnikov is filled with profound empathy for the suffering mayor. In a moment of compassion, he embraces the fallen horse, reflecting his yearning for empathy amidst a world marred by cruelty and indifference. This dream not only encapsulates Raskolnikov's internal struggle with guilt and the moral decay of society, but also serves a poignant reminder of the inherent dignity in suffering. In both narratives, we encounter the clash between two opposing forces, Dionysus and Christ. Nietzsche, in his celebration of the Dionysian spirit, invites individuals to to embrace the chaos and creativity of life, finding strength and affirmation in existence itself. Yet, this Dionysian embrace of suffering does not come without its own challenges, as it can lead to profound inner turmoil and existential crisis. Nietzsche's own experience illustrates this struggle. Amidst the chaos and despair, we are compelled to ask, what if Nietzsche had found a path to redemption? What if in the depths of his suffering he had embraced a more compassionate understanding of life, one that acknowledges the potential for love and divine grace, rather than succumbing to the frenzied chaos that Dionysus embodies? The story of the horse serves as a powerful metaphor for the fragility of life and the importance of compassion in a world often dominated by brutality. Raskolnikov's journey toward redemption mirrors this notion, suggesting that even the most tortured souls can find solace through empathy and love. His struggle represents a choice between paths, the chaotic embrace of Dionysian existence or the redemptive qualities associated with Christ. Thus, we are left with a profound question: is there hope for redemption amid chaos? As we reflect on Nietzsche's lament and Raskolnikov's dream, we find ourselves at the intersection of suffering and salvation, challenging us to explore the depths of our humanity. Can we transcend our pain to embrace a path of compassion, or will we be forever bound by the chains of our own making? This struggle, this dance between chaos and order, embodies the essence of our existence. In confronting these profound ideas, we discover the possibility of transformation, an enduring testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the critical choices that define our paths. Thank you for watching the video. Text what you think down in the comments, and see you next time.